Today's Talk About It Tuesday question is, what are some quick ways to find extra money for a down payment on a home? All right, love this question. We're thinking about home buying. So let's go through the obvious first, and then we'll go through some that are a little lesser known. So the biggest and most obvious way is to find a way to increase your income, at least temporarily. So that means maybe working some overtime, maybe getting a second job, maybe getting some hobby income, a little side hustle so you can get a little extra money. Also means cutting back on spending on some things that you're used to spending on so that you have a little extra to save. Those are the obvious things, right? So you got to tighten up the budget. You got to stop incurring other debt. You have to increase your income on the side. You can also increase your income by selling some things you don't really need. So start decluttering. So you can sell some electronics or some furniture. Facebook has a marketplace, eBay, Craigslist. You can sell those things there. A car you don't need anymore. So there's a whole host of things. You can also sell things that you're not using. That'll give you some extra income. But those are the obvious things, right? So there are other ways that are a little less obvious. If you do have other assets, you can start selling assets. I don't recommend selling necessarily other assets because you can also borrow against assets. So if you have a brokerage account, you can borrow against your brokerage account instead of selling your stock portfolio. You can borrow against it and have some money. If you have another property, you can borrow against that. You can pull money out of that. You can refinance, or you can get a HELOC and pull money from that to use for a down payment on a property. Again, some less obvious things. There are employee assistance programs for home buyers. So you should check with your employer to see if they have such a program. They don't usually announce it, but sometimes they exist because it helps them out tax-wise. But you should see if you have an employer assistance program. Usually it's for first-time home buyers. Now, first-time home buyer, believe it or not, you can not be a first-time home buyer and be a first-time home buyer. So if you have not owned a home, a principal residence in the last 3 years, you qualify again as a first-time home buyer. So just keep that in mind as well. Don't say, well, I bought a house 5 years ago. And no, well, if you haven't owned a principal residence in the last 3 years, you qualify as a first-time home buyer. Banks, credit unions, certain mortgage lenders also have down payment assistance programs. And again, they don't advertise. I went into Chase a couple months ago to open a new business account. And I said, well, do you guys have any money that's available for anything? I want to know what you have money available for. And I said, yes, we have a down payment grant that is available if people are purchasing in certain zip codes and they're first-time home buyers. I know Wells Fargo has a program that's very similar. So I'm talking about $10,000, $20,000 of grants, depending on the bank. And a lot of banks actually have these programs, but you have to ask. If you don't ask, they won't tell you. We also, believe it or not, on the federal level, on the state level, and on your local level, there are down payment assistance programs from the government. And these, again, come in the form of grants, sometimes forgivable loans, sometimes as a low interest second mortgage. Again, there are usually some qualifications. Sometimes it's income-based qualified. Sometimes it's zip code-based qualified when they're trying to rejuvenate a certain neighborhood. Sometimes, so let me see, income, zip code, the amount, the cost of the property. Sometimes there's a limit on how big the property can be. You might not be able to do it for a $2 million home, right? So they do have certain qualifications, and sometimes first-time home buyer also. So they do have certain qualifications, but look at the different qualifications that are available. So if you do a Google search and look for down payment assistance programs in my area, because again, they're sometimes very specific, right? There are some banks that only do certain areas. There are some municipalities who will only do certain areas. You find out all the different money that's available. And if you put all these things together, right, you start budgeting, so you save a little more. You start increasing your income a little more. Maybe you sell, again, a few things that you don't need anymore. And you look for all these grants and low interest loans. And again, oh, and you can also, now here, I wasn't going to say it, but because I don't recommend it, you can also tap into your retirement money. So if you have an IRA, you can borrow up to $10,000 from it. Not borrow. You can withdraw up to $10,000 from it without being penalized if it's for a first-time home purchase. So I don't recommend it because I don't recommend tapping into your future for now, right? You put that for the future for a reason. You can also borrow against your 401k, but again, it cuts into its ability to get exponential growth, right? So you lose some of the compounded growth because you're pulling money out that's not available to grow at that time, and you have to pay it back. But there are options, right? Those are options, and if you're really falling short in the other areas and you have to do it, you have to do it, right? So those are a whole host of ways you can actually get extra money pretty quickly to use for a down payment on a home. So I'd love to hear some of the strategies that you have that you might have used, how they work out for you. But please like, share, subscribe, keep the questions coming, and I'll see you next Tuesday.